Blog Talk Radio.
Are you ready to take a bite out of the competition? Are you looking for ideas to make your business better? Welcome to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet, sponsored by Apple Capital Group. At the core of every successful business, you'll find people making a difference. And with each episode of the Core Business Show, we talk with those people, examine those ideas, and explore the strategies that make them special. Now, the host of the Core Business Show, Tim Jacquet.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Core Business Show. Today, I have a pleasure of having Carl Warner. We're going to talk about several movie projects he's been working on, namely Dating Home Mars, a comedy web series. He's an independent producer and director and writer. If you want to call in at 347-324-3460, or you can pose a question in the chat room, and we'll go ahead and read it on the air. Well, Carl, welcome to the show.
Thank you. How you doing?
Great. Thank you for joining us today. I guess to begin with, kind of tell us about yourself.
Well,
our listeners like to get personal stories, so just if you don't mind sharing us some.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm a Jersey boy, born in Glen Ridge, New Jersey, where Tom Cruise went to high school, as a matter of fact. But pretty much I lived in Lake Hiawatha, moved to Verona, and then eventually went to high school in Livingston, New Jersey, where I was interested in becoming a writer first. Mm-hmm. And the problem was that being a writer and working on my first sci-fi novel, I was spending more time at the typewriter than out with girls. So basically, that wasn't going to work for me. So I got into songwriting because it didn't require lengthy pages of text in a novel. And I could write 2-minute, 3-minute short songs, and that might get me some more girls that way in songwriting and singing to them and so forth. Which worked out for me too, as a matter of fact, as a songwriter. And then I got into filmmaking, and then after that, I became an actor. So it was kind of like that's the order of things for me: a writer, songwriter, filmmaker, and then eventually an actor.
Okay, perfect.
And
go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm basically just extremely creative. I guess it's in the genes. I don't know. My grandfather was a writer, and my father was a bit of an entertainer. So that's pretty much what I wanted to be. I wasn't very good in sports. I wanted to be in soccer, football, baseball, basketball. None of those things were any kind of physical activity like that. It just didn't work for me. So I had to find some other outlet, and it was the creative outlet that worked for me. And basically, I started filmmaking because I watched some home movies of a friend of mine that were shot on regular 8mm film. The idea came that, hey, why don't we shoot our own movie with a story, or that sort of thing. And this is way back in the early 70s, shooting in 8mm. Eventually, later in the late 70s, they came out with Super 8 sound cameras.
Yeah.
And I purchased probably the first Super 8 sound camera in New York, and started shooting with this Super 8 sound camera, and bought some editing equipment and the projector as well, because you had to buy the projector, the sound projector that, in order for you to view and hear the film, because there's a sound strip and the projector had that ability to do that. So I got into filmmaking, starting off as a Super 8 sound filmmaker, just kind of shooting films with no real story. Even though I'm a writer, I just thought, well, let's just wing it. Yeah, for now. Let's shoot this anti-war film, The Unknown Enemy, I think it was called. I had some army clothes, and I had some local kids playing soldiers and things like that, and we kind of shot this anti-war in the neighborhood with no real plot or story, and we're just kind of winging it, and that's what happened. But of course, I realized eventually that the most important thing in a film or making a film is the story. That's the number one thing. And you've got to have the story and the script first before you start shooting it. You just can't go winging it unless you're shooting a documentary or something.
Well, which I did. Kind of ironic. It's kind of ironic. I mean to interrupt you. I know you have to have an outline, but one of the best-known movies that I think they improvised the whole show was, if you recall, Beverly Hills Cop. They said that we had a script, but Eddie didn't follow it. But he was so funny, and he kept things going. We just let it roll.
Yeah, well,
it was one of the
comedy.
most successful movies in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah, that's comedy, though. I think with comedy, you can get away with it. I don't think you can get away with it in science fiction or dramas or serious subject matter. I don't think you can get away with it unless you're shooting a documentary, as I mentioned earlier. But with comedy, I think you can get away with it. And as a matter of fact, with Dating on Mars, which is the web series that I'm currently shooting and editing, it is a comedy, and the actors are required to do some improvisation. It's loosely scripted. So as you mentioned with the Eddie Murphy film, much of it is like that. There is a script, of course. There's an outline, there's a script, there's dialogue, but I allow the actors to express themselves as actors and do whatever comes to mind. And if they come up with something funny or funnier than what was written in the script, by all means, let's shoot it that way.
Wow.
So that works for me. Although the TV pilot that I shot a few years ago, Future Man, which is based on a play that I wrote, Life with Nostradamus, back in '96. I shot a TV pilot, about 20-minute TV pilot. Now, that was totally scripted. There was hardly any improvisation back then. But this series, this web series, I do allow for the improvisation because it just makes it more fun, and there's opportunities for some great humor and funny moments because the actors are coming up with things that, as I mentioned, are not in the script and are even funnier than what was written in the script.
Well, is it really difficult? How did your inspiration come to you?
It hits me like a brick.
Wow.
It just strikes me all of a sudden. I know that inspiration comes to people in different ways. I know that Paul McCartney, the Beatles, several of his songs came in dreams. Like yesterday, it came to him in a dream. And with me, I'll take a nap and I'll just wake up suddenly and it just hits me. It's like, wow, that's the ending to the episode, or that's the plot, that's the story, that's the concept, and then you go with it. You have the kind of the seed of the story, an idea of it, and then you just start to develop and work on it, and to a full length feature or short, or in this case, a web series.
Wow.
So I don't know any other way to explain it. Like songwriting, the same thing. Where do songs come from? I mean, where do the melodies come from? Where do the lyrics come from? How can you explain that?
Do you think, in the course of all of that these things come to you in spurts? I mean, some people have all this built up energy in them that can produce a whole portfolio of music within a short period of time. And then once that is gone, then all of that creative energy is out of them. Now it's hard for them to go back and recreate what they had. So maybe we're born, or we have in our subset a certain amount of creativity or a portfolio of things. Then from that moment, maybe it's a 3-year or 5-year or 7-year span. And then all of a sudden, then our world changes and it's gone. And we struggle to catch up what we had in the past.
Yeah, and that leads to depression, basically. I mean, then you're really depressed and you don't know what to do with yourself, and you think I've said everything, I wrote everything, I don't know what else to do. I hate to make this comparison, but maybe that's with Ernest Hemingway. Maybe that's what happened in his case. I don't know. I mean, I know he committed suicide, but was it because he just didn't have another creative thought after that? I don't know. I don't even want to talk about that, but I think it does lead to depression. There are people that are perhaps not able to achieve or create something as creative, let's say, as their previous project or something they worked on that was very exciting and they felt very passionate about. And then all the passion and all that stuff is gone because it's like an empty well. There's just nothing there that you can work on or develop because you're just out of ideas. But it'll come back to you. I mean, I don't think it goes away and it never comes back. I think you will find inspiration in anywhere you look, whether you look at a magazine cover or a book or a TV show or a movie or just walking around observing people and places and doing things. You're going to find inspiration unless you're just living in a cave. I mean, if you're living in a cave, then what are you going to do? You can draw pictures of animals on the cave walls, which is what they did back then. I mean, they had expressed themselves too back in those days. But if you're living in a cave, then it could be a problem. But if you're out there in the world experiencing life and doing things and meeting people and talking to people and so forth, you'll find inspiration. Sooner or later, you're going to find it. So there is hope for the struggling writer that is out of ideas. You'll find something to write about.
Well, does ideas normally come in packages with, if you pull everything you have out of you, do you really need to partner at that point with somebody else to kind of get that energy from them, and they give you ideas, and now you begin to collaborate?
Yes, exactly. That's. I'm glad you mentioned that, because Dating on Mars basically was not totally created by myself, even though I pretty much created the outline for the series of 14 episodes or webisodes. I created the outline, Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3, and I had some kind of an ending, although it is a cliffhanger ending. So basically, it ends, episode 14 ends on a cliffhanger. So basically, what happens after this character or these characters, who knows? But during the whole creative process of writing it, I do have an actor friend of mine, Martin Pfefferkorn, who is also involved in the project as an actor and a co-director. He's my collaborator, and he's the one that comes up with some of the funnier or funny stuff that we add to the scenes that are not in the script. And he's a professional actor. He's a character actor. He's been in a lot of major films and independent films. And he's been a great help and a great collaborator on the project. And it's great to collaborate, believe me. I mean, look at Lennon McCartney. I mean, there's a great collaboration right there, songwriting collaboration. So it's always good to collaborate. Problem is that are there people that want to collaborate with you? Because a lot of writers, they've got egos. And it's like, no, I want to write my own novel. I want it to be just my name, no one else. They just want to take all the credit. And you may not find a collaborator with many of your projects because they're too busy with their own stories to tell. But in this case, I'm grateful and happy to have Martin Pfefferkorn as a collaborator on this project.
Wow. We're going to take a break for a moment and then come back and talk more about your movie. We'll be back in a moment with Carl Warner.
You're listening to the Core Business Show, sponsored by Apple Capital Group. Apple Capital Group in Jacksonville, Florida, is a commercial lender that specializes in asset-based loans, equipment leasing and financing, invoice financing, commercial real estate loans, and asset-based financing in the U.S. and Canada. Apple Capital Group is a direct lender that lends on their private equity investment portfolio. 90% of most loans are decided within 2 hours, and vendor funding within 24 hours after documents are completed with a one-page application. No slow no's, just a quick decision and a fast yes. To get more information about lending from Apple Capital Group, call 866-611-7457. That's 866-611-7457 to speak with one of our loan specialists. Or visit us right now at applecapitalgroup.com. Welcome back to the Core. Once again, here's Tim Jacquet.
Again, we're with Carl Warner, independent film director, producer, and writer. Carl, if a person looking at coming into this particular industry, what advice will you give them?
What advice? Go out and shoot it, no matter what. Whatever you got to do, whatever it takes, go out and do it. Grab the bull by the horns and do it, regardless of lack of finance or lack of cooperation from people. If you have a vision, then go out and do it yourself if you have to. And in most cases, you do, because who else is going to do it? I mean, do you have Paramount Pictures behind you? Do you have Fox TV behind you on the project? Chances are. So you have to go out and make it happen, in which case, what I've done in this case, I produced, directed, and wrote a TV pilot, shot it myself. Of course, I hired a cameraman and an editor, but I hired the people to complete the project myself. And I have to go out and promote it, too. In this day and age, you wear all the hats, okay? Let's face it. Okay. You wear all the hats, because who's going to do it for you except you? I mean, I went to a music ASCAP, I Create Music Expo in Hollywood a few years ago. And at one of the seminars, a kid stood up, a young teenager. Yeah, I'm a songwriter. I've been writing these songs, but you know what? I don't have enough time to write songs because I'm out there promoting it myself. I mean, and I don't have much time to write any more songs. What do I do? And it's like, well, unless you got Capitol Records or Sony Records or whatever company behind you to promote and market your music, you got to do it yourself, unfortunately. So, as I said, you're wearing all the hats. You're out there, you're shooting, you're directing, and you've got to promote it yourself. I think a lot of filmmakers, the problem with filmmakers is they produce these films, but they don't take the next step to go out and really promote it. I mean, go out and do all these interviews. Go out and interviews, radio interviews, TV, whatever you can do to promote your film. Because if you don't do that, you're a tree among other trees in the forest. I mean, how are you going to stand out? How are you going to get grab attention to people that if you want to get their attention, you're going to have some marketing or promoting strategies to make that happen. That's basically all I can say about it. There's no miracle cure or anything or any incredible magic way to make your film an Academy Award-winning film unless you got to start yourself and make it happen yourself and then do as much as you can. And if you have to hire someone, to help promote it or market it, especially using the internet, bloggers, getting on blog sites or getting bloggers interested in your project, your film, maybe have them review your film in their blogs, go on Blog Talk Radio, like I am now. I mean, do whatever, because take advantage of the internet, because Fox TV and Paramount Pictures ain't doing it for you, okay? They're not doing that for you. You have to go out and do it yourself. As an independent filmmaker, you have to wear all the hats.
Well, do you think it's a lot easier today to make a film? Reality is really big. What is your comments regarding reality TV? I mean, it's really have taken over the airwaves.
Okay, my comments about it, I really don't want to comment too much about it, except for the fact that we can blame the writers' strike. Many years ago, when they had the writers' strike in Hollywood, when many of the writers were striking because they weren't making enough money or getting enough money for their writing talents for episodic television and dramas and comedies, they went on strike. Mm-hmm. But television had to keep the entertainment going. Oh, so, hey, we still have to entertain people, but the writers are on strike. What do we do now? So they came up with reality TV. MTV, I think, is probably responsible for that, really. MTV started. Music television became what it is now. It's no longer music television, but I think MTV is to blame for reality TV. So now, starting the whole trend of getting people together in a room or at the seashore, like the seaside heights, like Jersey Shore and so forth, getting together and doing the most outrageous, over-the-top things you can imagine. And believe me, it's manipulated by the producers. They're not just hanging out. I mean, the producers are manipulating them. I mean, they're telling them what to do and shooting it and editing it in a certain way to make it entertaining. And, that's what that's all about. And I don't know. I mean, why people are attracted to that. Look, that show, Jersey Shore, has lasted, I think, about 6 or 7 seasons now. And so did Mayberry, the show from the early 60s. That lasted about,
RFD?
Yeah, the show, from the early 60s. That lasted about six seasons. And that was a great show, very positive, on people loving each other and all that great stuff in the small town of Mayberry. And then today you have Jersey Shore, where people are showing off their tummies and their cleavage and acting like crazy people. So I don't know what the point of that is, but people just want to be entertained. But the thing is, I think that Jersey Shore appeals to a certain demographics, though. I think it only appeals to 14 to 28 or something like that, college kids, younger teenagers. I don't think Jersey Shore appeals to adults because I don't think they're happy to see people behave like that at the shore in New Jersey. I mean, I think they're like, wait a minute, I live in Seaside Heights, I live at the Jersey Shore, and I don't know any of these people.
Well, yes, play devil's advocate. And being a young producer coming up through this particular genre, I mean, you have a lot more opportunities from digital that's less expensive to shoot. Can a person, in the sense of not making a reality show, try to make a show, but don't have the high-end equipment, but can pull something together like Spike Lee did in the 80s when he did that one, She Has to Have It, and with almost no money, but somehow he pulled it together to get something out of it. Took him some time to do it, but he got it. For a person coming through the system today, with all of the technology we have today, it's a little easier to get something produced, and also to get something distributed, because you can be a web series in itself. You just have to promote it.
Yes. To answer that question, I'd say a big yes, because when I started out, as I mentioned earlier, I started out as a Super 8 filmmaker and shooting on Super 8. Mm-hmm. Super 8 ain't going to cut it in today's world when you're trying to present something to people. Yeah, I shot this on Super 8 sound. Take a look at it. It's a pilot or a movie, whatever. The thing was, I started with Super 8 sound. I never really got into 16 millimeter or Super 16, which is pretty much, I guess, the standard for many student films and indie films shooting on 16 millimeter. I didn't go that far. Eventually, I became a wedding videographer, and the great thing about it is I got paid to shoot weddings. I wasn't getting paid to make movies, but I was getting paid to shoot weddings, and I did that for about 7 years with my own business, using the state-of-the-art camera equipment that they had at the time. So for 7 years, I was shooting wedding videos, but being very frustrated because it's like, okay, yeah, I'm shooting their wedding video, I'm editing them, and I'm doing the best I can to make it look great and all this kind of stuff. I'm getting paid to do it, but I'm not making my own movies. And it was extremely frustrating. Then I went to a convention in Las Vegas, a WEVA convention. It's the Wedding Events Videography Association. When I went to the second convention they had, or at least the one I went to in Las Vegas at Bally's, Panasonic presented a new video camera that shoots 24 frames per second. And I saw what it did in a demo or a video that they showed, like a trailer. And my mouth was wide open. I said, oh my God, this looks like 35 millimeter film. It doesn't look like video. It doesn't look like dark shadows and soap operas on TV. Mm-hmm. They're shot on video. This looks like motion picture film stock, like it was shot on film. And that turned me around right away. I said, well, this is the future of filmmaking. When Panasonic came out with this camera, and of course, you had to purchase the additional software, editing software, to make it look that way, with certain filters, whatever, to make it look like film. That blew me away. I said, now I can make my movie. Now I can make my TV pilot. Now I can do whatever I want as far as making films, because now we have a camera that can accomplish that. We have the technology. Now we can go out and do it. So yeah, with all these cameras that are out now, shooting in high definition, 24 frames per second, that kind of thing, you can make your film, feature length, short, web series, whatever. You can make it look as professional as the big guys, you know. And there are some other cameras like the Red camera that is one of the best cameras for shooting films now. But what's great is that these cameras can handle low light filming. So you don't need those big bright lights they use in Hollywood when they make those movies to shoot in an interior scene, because the cameras handle very well in low light situations. So you don't have to worry about lighting as much to create the desired image or effect or whatever. So these cameras are greatly improving all the time for filmmakers like us, so we can make our film look just as good as Hollywood films. And getting back to the Spike Lee thing, that film that you mentioned was shot in black and white, mostly. There was one brief color scene, but I know the film you're talking about. Can you imagine how tough it must have been for Spike Lee? I mean, he's an African-American filmmaker, and Hollywood is pretty much predominantly white guys making movies there. And here he is breaking into the industry, which is fantastic, making this film, which is actually one of my favorite Spike Lee movies. It's his first film, but he shot it very low budget. You know what? That's the way to go. Shoot it low budget, because what are they going to give you? They give you $20 million and okay, now I can do it the way I want to do it. That's not how reality works. I mean, if you're going to start on a project, you're not going to be given $20 million to make a movie. You're going to start low budget. And if you can accomplish it and tell your story and shoot it nice, make it look nice and sound is good and all that great stuff, you don't need $20 million to make your short film. Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock's film, was shot under $1 million. It cost under $1 million to shoot that film. It is a brilliant, absolutely brilliant horror film. And it's all in the storytelling and in the editing. That's what makes it work. And it cost them less than $1 million to shoot. So think about it.
Why does it cost millions of dollars, 20, 50, $100 million to shoot a movie? Why the cost is so high?
I'll tell you why. Why? Two reasons. One, who are you hiring as the actor to play in it? You getting Tom Cruise? Are you getting Nicole Kidman? Are you getting Jack Nicholson? Are you getting Robert De Niro? I mean, if you're getting these big money stars, I mean, Tom Cruise is the highest paid actor, I believe, right now. And then you have Adam Sandler and, a few other guys who are getting big bucks for their movies. But if you're going to hire these high actors demanding high salaries, that's where a lot of your budget is going to. Okay. The other thing is the special effects. if you're doing a lot of CGI, computer graphic manipulating on a computer, all the special effects that you might need for your film, there goes a lot of your budget right there. Because if you're going to be working with Industrial Light and Magic, George Lucas place, you're spending a ton on just the special effects. And then there's the marketing. Once it's all done, then they're spending a few more millions of dollars marketing it. Posters, trailers, all kinds of marketing gimmicks to sell the film or whatever they got to do to promote it. You go to Manhattan, you see a huge poster of your movie. Of course. I mean, you get Paramount Pictures or something back paying for to promote it. So, but the thing is, yeah, you spent a lot of money making it, but you better get that money back and hope that it's a blockbuster. Because there have been some films,
the higher the cost. Yeah, but the higher the cost, it's less return you're going to get.
Yeah, exactly. So my advice would be this: make your film low budget, or keep it within the budget that you're working with. If you have a certain amount of money, even if it's like $20,000 or whatever, stick to that budget and work within that budget, because the point is that you want to make it cheaply so that you can make money from it when it has some success, whether it's through distribution or festivals, if you're getting some recognition at festivals and things like that. But if you can make a cheap film and it looks great and it's a great story and all that kind of stuff, there you go. I mean, make a cheap movie that makes tons of money. Perfect example is Blair Witch. That film with a lot of shaky camera work, a bunch of kids going around looking for the Blair Witch, right?
Yeah.
I saw the film and I almost threw up because the camera was shaking so much. But you know what? How much did it cost them to make that film, and how much did it gross at the box office? Millions and millions of dollars, and how much it cost them to make it? What, 20,000? I don't know. And it's like Hollywood takes notice of this. They notice that and go, hey, look, he made this cheap film and it's making a lot of money. That's where you're going to get some recognition.
But why is it always far in between? I mean, to interrupt you, that we have good projects like that works. Is just Hollywood just don't know what to look for?
Hollywood is always looking for something. Unfortunately, they're looking in the wrong places. So like the song, looking for love in all the wrong places. Maybe they're not looking in the right places. They're more traditional, perhaps, in when it comes to scripts and screenplays. I mean, they're going through agents and looking at screenplays. What about the independent screenplay writer that doesn't have an agent? What is he going to do? What if he's got a killer script, but he doesn't have an agent? So it's not going to get to some guy at Paramount or at 20th Century Fox because he doesn't have an agent. So they need to look further out and to find the good scripts out there rather than rely on agents who are just supplying the scripts for them to look at. And chances are, well, Hollywood is playing it safe by just doing remakes. They're just remaking films that have been made before and remaking them. Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, that's a remake. You name it, the list goes on. I mean, there's just so many films. And then, of course, the comic book characters like Spider-Man, Batman.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the ones that are making big bucks for the studios because we've already established these characters a long time ago in the comic books. So we know all about these characters, and it's already got an audience, mostly teenagers, but, it's already got an audience. So they know that they're making big bucks with comic book characters on the big screen, and they can do it now because of CGI. Before CGI, you couldn't create all these incredible effects like for Spider-Man and Batman and Superman and all that kind of stuff. You couldn't do that 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. I mean, now with computer graphics, you can do anything. So, of course, Hollywood's going to jump on the bandwagon with superhero movies, the Avengers and all those films.
Yeah, how many times you can make remakes Batman and Spider-Man? I mean,
well,
it's like, yeah.
A lot of times they call it reimagining. They reimagine it. I think the new Amazing Spider-Man, which I think it's called the Amazing Spider-Man, has been sort of reimagined. So it's not the old Spider-Man from a few years ago. It's like the new Spider-Man, but reimagined.
It still looks the same to me.
So it's like, oh, it's better now. But it still comes down to the story. I mean, if you got a really good script, really good story, and good characters, I don't care how many special effects you got. Special effects, great, sure, wonderful. But you still got to have a good story and good characters and good dialogue.
Well, let's back up for a second, back to your project. You have a lot of theater experience, a lot of film experience, a playwright, recordings, I mean, and it goes on and on. Tell us about this Dating on Mars movie
Okay.
and where it can be found.
Dating on Mars is a web series comedy presented in 14 webisodes. I guess that's the term they use now, webisodes. Short webisodes. Basically, they're only about anywhere from 7 to 9 minutes in length. And I thought this was very appealing to me. Presenting something broken up into short episodes with possibly a cliffhanger after each episode, much like Flash Gordon. The serial Flash Gordon, I think it came out in 1936, I think is when Flash Gordon came out. And they showed these serials, these short 13 episodes of Flash Gordon in the movie on the movie theaters. That was great as a kid watching it, not in the movie theaters because I wasn't even born then. But when I started watching them on television, I saw the Flash Gordon, black and white Flash Gordon episodes, short episodes leading up to a cliffhanger. I thought about that when I worked on Dating on Mars. I said, hey, that's the way I'll construct this project. Not as a feature film, not as a short, but as a web series in 14 short webisodes, building up to some type of cliffhanger. And the inspiration also came from not only Flash Gordon, but it also came from Rich Man, Poor Man, the series on television based on the book, Thornbirds, all those shows, I think in the 70s, where they were based on novels, and then they made them into this one episode of Rich Man, Poor Man, and you have to follow the story in order to find out what happens to these characters. And that's it right there. It's like you've got to create interesting characters and an interesting story so that you want to follow this story, much like a soap opera. You want to follow it to the end. You want to find out what happens in the end if you haven't read the book. So it's Rich Man, Poor Man, The Thornbirds, Shogun. A lot of those shows were in the 70s. I watched those, and I watched them from beginning to end because I wanted to find out what happens to these characters. So Dating on Mars is kind of the same thing. There is a story. We introduce the characters, and you have to follow the story. It's not just a lot of silly comedy where they're just making funny noises and doing outrageous things and over-the-top stuff and you're putting on makeup and that's about it, or sitting on a couch and belching. It's not just that. There's a story that you need to follow to find out what happens to these characters. And I can tell the origins of Dating on Mars. Basically, I was working on two scripts. One was a play called The Horrors of Internet Dating, and that was a play I was working on because I was recently divorced and I was starting to date again, and I discovered this wonderful world of Internet dating and all these dating sites and the wonderful world of Internet dating. And to my horror, I found out it's not what it all cracked up to be with some of these called people who represent themselves with photos that are 20 years old or whatever. And you meet them and they're nothing like their photo, or their personality is just like, oh boy, nothing like their profile. So I wanted to write a play about that experience because you write and that's what I wanted to do. And what you don't know, you make up. So a lot of Dating on Mars are my dating experiences. Then I was working on a screenplay, my first screenplay called, it's a working title, Hot Alien Babes from Outer Space. Now, this was supposed to be kind of like a parody or just a film about attractive women that come to Earth looking for a few good men to mate with because they have problems on their planet with the men because they can't reproduce. The sperm is just no good. They're shooting blanks over there. So they're looking for so it was a comedy. But the other thing about the script was that I was hoping to incorporate all these things that I grew up with watching science fiction films. So there's scenes like moments like 2001: A Space Odyssey are in there. Forbidden Planet is in there. Star Trek is in there. Star Wars is in there. All these references to famous science fiction stories would be mentioned in the screenplay, in some of the scenes. And not only just science fiction, but other films as well, famous films, where there would be scenes where you watch them. Any film critic can watch and go, oh, I know what this is from, what movie this is from. So it was kind of like that's the little added ingredient, was interjecting famous movies into the scenes or plot or whatever. And it's up to the filmmaking expert to pick them out and say, oh, I know what that's from, and I know what that's from. It's all in the script. Well, I never really totally completed that screenplay. One of the reasons was because I don't have an agent, as I mentioned earlier. I don't have an agent. So how am I going to shop this around in Hollywood? So forget about it. So I took a lot of stuff from that screenplay, Hot Alien Babes from Outer Space, and combined it with the stage play, The Horrors of Internet Dating, and putting them two together, and I got Dating on Mars. So basically, it is about a divorced and unemployed astronaut starting to date again. And that's as much as I want to say about it. Of course,
that's fine.
The story. Because you know why, Tim? It's because one of the great thrills. And yeah, I mean, when I saw Star Wars for the first time, I saw no preview. I saw no trailer. I saw a poster. That's it. When I saw it on the big screen when it first came out, it blew me away. It's like, wow, I've never seen. Same thing with Alien. When Alien came out, I knew nothing about the story. I didn't see any trailer. I didn't see anything on the internet. Millions of things written about it on the internet. That's before the internet. I didn't know anything about it. So when I went to the theater on the big screen, 70 millimeter, whatever, it blew me away because I knew nothing about it and saw nothing, no scenes or trailer, anything. And I think that's the way you should see movies. Nowadays, you have the internet, and everybody knows about the film already. They've seen scenes from it. They've seen the trailer. They've seen 6 trailers from it. They pretty much almost know the entire plot. Well, don't see it. Well, why bother seeing it then? Because you know already about it. So the whole excitement of seeing a movie for the first time is totally shot because it's like you already know what happened. But fortunately, most directors are smart enough not to reveal much of anything in the film. What's annoying is we have these Hollywood interviewers. They go, so can you tell us a little about the movie? Yeah, this guy meets this girl and they fall in love. Anything else? No, that's about it. Why should I tell you any more about it?
Absolutely.
I mean,
Paul, we have a few seconds remaining. Anything you'd like to add regarding your company, and how can we contact you if we want to take a look at this web series?
Okay, the web series dating. Right now, there's only a trailer available. There is a trailer, yes, so you have some idea what it's about. Just go to YouTube and type in the search engine "Dating on Mars" official trailer, and you get a chance to see the trailer and get a glimpse. It's quirky. It's Monty Python-ish. It's got some of that humor. It's hopefully unpredictable, so you don't know where things are going with the characters or their situations, which is another key thing when you're writing a screenplay. Be unpredictable. Don't be predictable where this character's going, what he's doing. Create something that totally changes everything, because that makes it more interesting. So, but you can see the trailer on YouTube, and the series will be coming out probably on some YouTube channel or maybe some other web-based channel that feature web series. And we're going to have a special sneak preview episode available in the next few weeks. And what I mean by that is it's episode 4, much like Star Wars. Episode 4 of the series will start. And then after that, we'll start to feature them one episode at a time, starting with episode 1.
Wow.
And that's about as far as where it's going to wind up, Tim, I couldn't tell you because there's so much out there now. There's mydamnchannel.com. There's the YouTube channel. I mean, Google, I think, purchased YouTube. So now, and also there's Amazon Studios. They're looking for new stuff, new TV shows, pilots, movies, whatever. Once a month, they select some new stuff to present, and you make some money from it. You make some money from it. That's the most important thing. You're making money from it too, it's not just a hobby. I mean, you can make money from this.
Good. So what's your website address again?
Well, the website hasn't been established yet.
Okay.
Until we start getting, it probably would be datingonmars.com.
Okay. For your company, it's if they want to locate you to get more information.
Well, I'm on Facebook right now. I haven't really established any unfortunately, I mean, I haven't really established any website that people can go to directly to see my work.
Okay.
You can go to Vimeo. You can go to look at some clips on YouTube, on Vimeo. If you go to Vimeo, if you type in Future Man, you'll see the actual TV pilot of Future Man that I shot a few years ago. You'll see that on there as well. So you see some of the work that I've done. But I'm hoping to put all of that together in a form of a website that people can go to eventually, soon.
Great. Well, thank you for coming on the program, Carl. I really appreciate it.
Sure,
thank
no
you
problem.
so much.
Thanks.
Okay, great. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Again, it's been another production of the Core Business Show. Thank you for listening, and everybody have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet. For more information about equipment financing and asset-based loans, visit our website, applecapitalgroup.com. That's applecapitalgroup.com. Or call us at 866-611-7457. We hope you'll join us for our next episode. And remember, you can always get to the core via iTunes. You'll find all our previous episodes there. And thanks again for listening to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet.